Hey guys, AscendantGod here and below. Here with Raid Shadow Legends, looking at the current champion fusion event for Harvest Jack. Harvest Jack is the special event going on for Halloween. I love Halloween. Love things that are dark like this. So he looks awesome. He's really cool as far as his look, as far as his abilities. Not so much. In short, if you don't want to look through this whole thing and you're just trying to get the answer that is he good for end game content, the answer is most likely not, except for Faction Wars. But Faction Wars, as you guys probably know already, they're not that great. I mean, the glyphs aren't that spectacular. I mean, you could get a 5-star glyph and only get the buff that you'd get from a 1-star. So the glyphs are just really underwhelming. Faction Wars in general is underwhelming. So just getting him for that, I mean, if you have the extra energy, you have the extra money, you have nothing better to do, yeah, sure, get him. You know, I'm going for him because number one, I love Halloween. Number two, I think he'd be fun to play with in Arena. I don't think he'd be great in Arena, but I think he'd be fun to play with just because he has abilities that I don't have on anybody else in my roster yet. And he has an interesting kit. We'll take a look at that in a bit. But do I think he's amazing? No. I think he'll be maybe okay in Arena, depending on how well his damage scales. I think that he will be great in Faction Wars. I do admit that. I think he'll be great in Faction Wars. And for a few reasons that I'll get into in just a bit. But other than that, like Clan Boss, no. He has nothing for Clan Boss. Absolutely not for Clan Boss. And as far as the dungeons, if you don't have anybody that amazing, maybe he'd be useful for a few of the dungeons, but not for Spider, not for Fire Knight's Castle, because he only has one-hit attacks, I believe. So, or maybe he has a couple, I don't know. We'll take a look in just a bit, but I definitely don't see him useful in Fire Knight's Castle, but we'll show you why in a bit. So, as you can see, you got to get a lot of different champions for him. One of the things that I do like about that Plarium started doing right since the whole Foley paywall scam is making things a lot more transparent. So, you see now, in case for those of you who don't know, when you go to that news panel over on the side here, it shows you the fusion event and where you get all the different champions. So regretfully, this Suai Firstborn is the only one that you can get directly. Everybody else you need to fuse from a bunch of different champions, which kind of sucks. And but anyway, you can get her either from a champion chase tournament, which is essentially buy shards and win event. I can't stand them because it's all about who spends the money on buying shards. Like, I don't like buying shards. I'll buy energy here and there. I don't like buying shards, especially with like the sacred shards priced at about $20, $25 a pop. That's insane. That's insane in my opinion. Especially considering more likely than not, you're just going to get a trash epic. So anyway, but they do also have her attainable from a champion training event too coming up, which is really good. Now, one thing I want to mention here, because a couple clan members almost ended up opening shards today. I told them, look at this champion chase. This one is on October 31st. Okay, so if you're watching this before October 31st, there is a champion chase tournament going on right now. Or again, from now on here, let's call it just buy shards and win, because that's what it is. It's buy shards and win. That's what I call them. All right, so you see there's a current buy shards and win event going on. There is a champion in here. This is not one of the ones that's required for the fusion. That's one of the frustrating things that I feel is kind of underhanded here. I don't know if they did it on purpose, but it's like when you click, you can't see his name. So since it's kind of small, especially if you have like, you know, an iPhone that you're playing on or an Android or something, might be a really small screen. This champion is not one of the champions you need. So do not go opening shards and wasting those shards right now, because there's no double chances at legendaries. There's no champion that you need for Harvest Jack. Don't do it yet. Just wait. Now, if it is past October 31st, then, you know, make sure if you're watching this video after that point, then yeah, that's the one that you want if you want to get her. But you can get her other ways as well. Now, let me jump back to that really quick, too, just to show you something. Because keep in mind, other champions you have to go into dungeons for, or you have to go into campaigns for. So like some of them, like say Ghoulish Ranger, available from Dragon's Lair, so you have to go into a dungeon to get him. With Muckstalker, that's one of the ones that we can regularly get from the campaign in Godfrey's Crossing. So with some of these champions, pay attention, because they're not coming all exclusively from events. Some of them are coming from having to either farm dungeons or farm campaigns. So start looking now, because some of these champions, I mean, I was fortunate. The only one that I didn't have from the dungeons was the Beast Wrestler. Didn't have him yet in Spider Dungeon. I was fortunate enough to end up spending like 1300 energy and getting him. So, and that's good. That was lucky, as sad as that is, because that's a lot of freaking energy. I was fortunate. I know other people are complaining on the forums that they've spent 4,000 or 5,000 energy and still haven't gotten some of the champions from this at stage 20. And the higher the stage, the better the odds are supposed to be at getting the champions. So if you're not at endgame content, you might have a long road ahead of you, because even at stage 20s, some people are saying they're using upwards of 4,000, 5,000 some odd energy. I saw somebody that claimed they used 6,000 something energy. I think it was like 6,200, 6,300 energy. It's insane. And at a stage 20, and they're like, I'm done. They said they quit. So anyway, so it's again another one of those frustrating things where this is chasing players away because there's no guarantee. I mean, in my opinion, Plarium needs to start making it where it's like each time you beat one of the dungeons, it increases your chances of getting that champion by, say, 0.3% or 0.5%. I mean, even at 0.3%, that's not much, but you at least know you're working towards getting that champion. You know, whereas right now, you have no idea. I mean, somebody that's a newbie could farm Spider Dungeon and get Beast Wrestler on the very first run. Somebody else could, you know, spend 10,000 energy and not get it with some really bad luck. That's the thing that sucks about RNG, is you never know. So I would say for these ones that you do still need to get, if you really want this champion, start farming them now. Because remember, you got to farm these champions and you have to farm the potions for the ascensions. And there's going to be quite a bit of ascensions, because remember, you got to get all these ones here. There's none of these ones are directly obtainable. None of them. Other than this one from the login rewards, but I think she's pretty solid, so I don't think you should use her if you only have the one from the login rewards. But the rest of these, you're going to have to ascend all of these to the level 4 ascensions. All these need to go up to the level 5 ascensions. That's a lot of potions, and it's from everything. The green, the blue, the red, voids. Remember, voids only opens up on the Saturdays, or is it Sundays in the game? I don't know, but for me it's Saturdays, so I know the time in the game is off compared to mine for me. But anyway, so take a look at what you need. Start farming the stuff now. Farm for the potions, farm the dungeons, farm the campaigns. Start getting all of them prepared in advance, because the last thing you want is to run out of gems, not have any money to spend on this, and then it turns out, oh well, I need more void potions, but Saturday came and went and I don't have them, and the deadline's coming up for this fusion. So now it's like I either need to spend, what is it, like 300 gems to open up a dungeon these days? It's like, you know, or you're going to miss out. So, you know, don't start investing into Harvest Jack unless you're confident that you're going to be able to get everything that you need within the time frame. I mean, you have a little over 2 weeks. You got a lot of time, but there's a lot of things you need to farm for. If you don't have it already, one of my suggestions, get Nox Player for your computer. If you have a desktop or a laptop, get a program called Nox Player, N-O-X Player. All right. Reason being is you can set things called macros on it. With the macros, it's amazing. You can auto farm things like dungeons with it, where you can refill your potions, replay the dungeons, and you can set that up for while you go to sleep. You wake up in the morning and, you know, you farmed it a bunch. Now you have a bunch of new like amulets and rings and banners, plus you hopefully have that champion as well. So things like that. So, you know, Nox Player is invaluable for those of you who don't want to have to manually farm. All right. Now, so with that said, you know what you need to get down here. You know, a little bit of the, you know, if you don't have Nox Player yet, I'd suggest getting that for this. All right. Now let's take a look at Harvest Jack. Now I'm going to go into this through the index, just because in the index, you're going to see him maxed out. If you go into it in the fusion, you don't see him maxed out. Now, couple things that I want to point out with him. Number one, he looks absolutely awesome. I mean, this is a really cool looking champion. At least I think so. I love the undead. I love things that are dark. Like I said, I'm weird. I'm like a kind of hero type, like on the good side, but with dark look. You know, so I don't know. I don't understand it. But anyway, but yeah, he's really cool. I mean, he's got like all these heads on his chest. He's got a cool glowing sigh. His face looks really wicked. You know, kind of like that headless horseman kind of look going on, but with multiple eyes. So, I mean, he looks really freaking cool in my opinion. I love his look. All right, and then you notice he is a hit point based champion, so he actually scales off of pumping hit points into him. I prefer defense because I feel like defense in just about every encounter is better than hit points. But regardless, I'd rather have a hit point based champion than an attack based champion, because then with an attack based champion like say Nethril here, with attack based, you know, you got to try to juggle that, oh, well, all of his attacks are attack based, so how much attack do I want to pump into him to make him hit hard, but then at the same time give him enough defense and hit points so that he survives, but then that cuts into his damage. With, you know, Harvest Jack here, thankfully you can pump a ton of hit points into him, and every single one of his attacks are hit point based, so really cool. All right, in that regard, not quite as good as a defense based in my opinion, but better than an attack. All right, so let's take a look at what he's got. And with that said, you notice his defense is not that impressive. It's only 925. I mean, even Nethril, which is kind of squishy, has 991. You know, I mean, then you got like 936 on this champion. So, I mean, but there's some champions that are like substantially higher. A lot of these are like the attack-based ones. So it's like we got a support, yeah, 1156. So you can see some champions do have a lot more. But all in all, I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not impressive either. But look at his hit points, 26, almost 27,000 here. All right. And again, you compare him just to him, 17,000. He has 10,000 more. That's a lot of extra survival. All right, so that's really cool, especially useful in Arena, because Arena, I mean, hit points and defense, I feel, are both like pretty useful in Arena, because with Arena, a lot of people use defense down, which is going to hurt your defense. With hit points, there isn't any hit points down, so it's like, well, you can load up with a ton of hit points and a defense down won't impact you. So there is that advantage in Arena. So with that said, let's look at his kits. So to start, he has this passive here, where when he's attacked, it decreases the duration of all buffs on the attacker by 1 turn. That's pretty cool. And this is again where I said he is pretty useful in faction wars, because with this here, when the boss is attacking you and they have buffs on themselves, it's going to decrease the duration of the buffs by 1 turn. It means you need to put accuracy on him, so it's like either, okay, I'm going to make him really tough and do a lot of debuffs and things like that, and then not put as much hit points on him so he doesn't hit as hard, or, you know, I'm going to forego some of these abilities and make a big chance that he could get resisted at the expense of pumping more hit points into him, improving his survival and doing more damage. So it's kind of one of those things, but I feel like his kit has so many interesting abilities that it's definitely going to be worth putting accuracy into him to the point where he's not going to get resisted much. All right, so this one here is fairly cool, where it decreases buffs on attackers. All right, next, his A3. This thing is one of the main reasons I want to get him, because this is something unlike any other abilities that I have. I don't have anybody with Fear or True Fear yet. Now this attacks all enemies, so it's an AoE, it's hit point based, which is nice, 75% chance of placing a True Fear debuff for a turn. And then it also places a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, and decreases each target's turn meter by 15% if True Fear debuff is placed. So that's pretty cool. All right, and then 75% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn if the True Fear debuff is not placed. Now, one thing that I don't feel makes much sense here is that if you put Legendary Tombs into him, you can see down here, this brings this up to a 100% chance to place True Fear. So I guess unless it gets resisted, if it gets resisted, then maybe this would trigger still, but otherwise, you're never going to get sleep. But I don't like sleep anyway, because with sleep, it's like if the champion takes any damage before that turn is up, the sleep falls off of them and it was worthless. So I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of sleep. You know, I'd rather have a stun, you know, or daze or whatever it's called. But anyway, so not a huge fan of sleep anyway. But the True Fear, now the issue that I have with this is this, all right? With True Fear, like, yes, it's cool to get a decreased speed, it's cool to get a decreased turn meter, that's kind of useful in Arena. The turn meter decrease is definitely useful in Arena. Decreased speed, not so much, because by the time that he would be doing his A3, most likely the turn meters of the enemy is already pretty high already. So, unless, depending on what your composition is, like if you have somebody like me, like Nethril, I knock down turn meters and then slow it down, I would want him to go after Nethril, decrease the speed, or really doesn't matter which one goes first, it's going to decrease the speed either way. That's pretty cool. So, anyway, alright, so with that said, Here's my problem with this, is that I don't feel Harvest Jack is worthwhile putting tombs into if you have decent champions already, and this is only a 75% chance. 75% chance is pretty high in and of itself, but here's the problem. Remember, True Fear, the way it works, if you don't know how those mechanics are, True Fear is a 50% chance that when the champion goes to attack you, their ability will fail and it'll put their skills on cooldown, which means their A2, A3, A4, if they have them, is going to go on cooldown. That's kind of cool, but it's only a 50% chance that's going to happen. There's also a 50% chance that they're going to come at you full force and that the True Fear does nothing to them. So that's a gamble. It's not a guarantee like some other champions where they have a 100% chance of doing some ability. This here, even if you get him up to a 100% chance of placing True Fear, there's still only a 50% chance that it's going to happen. Now, if you're not putting tombs into him, though, which for most of us that's at endgame content, we're probably not going to, that's only a 75% chance of even placing True Fear, and then after the 75% chance, then you only have a 50% chance of it triggering. That's not that good of an odd, especially considering there's other champions where it's like their debuffs can't even be resisted that are legendaries. So I don't feel that's that impressive. I mean, maxing him out with tombs, I mean, it's kind of cool. Half of the champions are going to lose their skills. They're going to get placed on cooldown. They're going to lose a turn. That's pretty cool. But it's not cool for the other ones that are going to get attacks through. Plus, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe Fear and True Fear can be placed on bosses. And that's what really hurts him, is that you would think most of his abilities are really useful for the bosses. But then this is worthless on the boss. So it's like, And I could be wrong. If I am wrong, please let me know in the comments section so everybody else knows. But I'm almost positive Fear and True Fear can't be placed on bosses. So, but the other abilities could still be fairly cool on the bosses. Slowing them down, definitely. Decreasing the turn meter, definitely on bosses. So anyway, overall, it's pretty cool, especially since it's a hit point based one. But like I said, it's subpar for like top tier legendaries. I don't feel that True Fear, even True Fear by itself with a 100% chance, it's a gamble. It's 50% chance that it's going to trigger, 50% chance that it will do absolutely nothing. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It's too much of a gamble. So this one here, A2, attacks all enemies, places a block buffs, debuff for 2 turns on targets under fear debuffs. Now, this could be useful. Now, let me explain the rest of this first. So, the other abilities here, this is pretty cool, because I've never seen any abilities like this on a champion either. He removes any increased attack buffs, and he'll give the champion a decreased attack instead for 2 turns, removes any continuous heal buffs on them, and puts poisons on them for 2 turns. And if they have 2 continuous heals or 3, it's going to put 2 or 3 poisons on them. So that's pretty cool, especially in like dungeons and faction wars. This is why I'm saying he could be really useful. So, because this is going to flip things where it's like, oh, they got increased attack on them, they got heals, they have the upper hand. Nope. Harvest Jack is going to flip that and make it to their disadvantage to have those things on them. Now, few issues that I have with this ability. Number one, is this going to trigger off of Fear and True Fear, or just Fear? If it only triggers off of Fear and not True Fear, this is kind of garbage. It's actually very garbage, because you're not going to block buffs most of the time, because the only thing that places Fear is A1. So in Arena, this is hardly ever going to trigger, because you're not going to be using your A1 in Arena most of the time. Usually by the A3 and the A2, the enemy's dead, or else they went first and you're dead. So it depends. If this triggers off of both Fear and True Fear, useful. If not, not really that great. And except for, again, in dungeons, faction wars, it'd be okay. Especially if you have a counterattack champion where he's counterattacking a lot with his A1. But, and with that, with counterattack groups, he could be really, really cool, because he'll be buffing the heck out of himself too, by stealing all the buffs. And then with this here, like I said, I like the fact that he flips the buffs on people to their disadvantage, and it changes buffs into debuffs. I've never seen that before, so that's cool. And again, it's based on hit points, which is pretty cool too. So again, this one really depends on if it triggers from Fear and True Fear or not. I kind of have a feeling with the way that it's worded, it's probably only going to trigger off of True Fear, which kind of makes him less worthwhile in Arena, which really sucks. But maybe they'll change that eventually, who knows? Especially if he's really underwhelming. And then this one here, Harvest of Fear, attacks an enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 25% chance of stealing a random buff from the target. It's really cool. So that means like with 3 hits, 3 25% chances, so you have a pretty decent chance each turn of stealing buffs from the target. And then you can also increase it up to 35% chance, which is a really good chance of stealing a buff each turn. And it could steal multiple buffs. It could, if you're really lucky, it could steal 3 buffs in one turn because it hits the champion 3 times. If you're unlucky, you could miss all 3. But each hit also has a 25% chance of placing a fear debuff for a turn if the target has no active buffs. So that's, again, something that's really cool, that if they don't have any buffs, it's still doing something. It still has a chance of doing something. So no matter what's going on with the champion, it's not just about stealing buffs. Like, you know, some people, like, say, what is his name? Aethar, I think it is, or whatever. He has an ability where he has a chance to steal a buff from an enemy, but if they don't have any buffs, nothing happens. It's cool that this guy, if there is no buffs, still has something else that he could do to them. And then it's cool that the chance increases to 100% if all buffs were stolen from the target. So say if they don't have it, I don't know if what this means is if all buffs were stolen from the target, meaning that he had to have stolen buffs from them, or if they don't have any buffs, if it's still 100% chance. So if it's, because this is kind of like confusing, where it's like, you know, increase 100% if all buffs were stolen, but it's like, what if there was no buffs to steal? Does it still have the 100% chance? I don't know. I think this might mean that you have to have stolen at least 1 buff from the enemy in order for it to be 100% chance. But this is where that fear would work in conjunction with A2. So again, useful in the dungeons, useful in faction wars to an extent, not so much useful in arena, because how often are you going to be using your A1 in arena? Not very often. And if you're using the A1, what are the chances that you're going to go back to using the A2 again? Fights don't usually last that long in the gold arena. So again, like, if you're not an endgame champion, you know, or an endgame player, I should say, then yeah, this could be really useful. But otherwise, again, it's hit point based, which is pretty cool, but I don't know. I mean, it's, you know, he's decent. He's decent. That's what I can say. Overall, I mean, I feel like he's interesting. He seems really cool because he has things that we haven't seen in prior champions. Has a pretty cool passive and everything too. Overall, I don't feel he's particularly amazing. I don't feel that he's up to par with, you know, some of the other stronger end-game legendaries that we have. But I think he'll be fun to play with. I think he's kind of interesting. I think if you have the time, you have the money, or you have the energy, the gems you want to put into him, go for it. I mean, I think he'll be fun. He'll be a lot of fun in faction wars, that's for sure, especially against the bosses, stealing their buffs from them, turning their buffs against them. Yeah, that'd be cool. But and then the fear and the true fear is for, you know, the trash up to the boss. That's cool too. So I think he'll be fun. A lot of it's going to be determined by how well his damage scales off of his hit points, you know, as far as these, you know, but we'll see. I mean, I'm definitely going to be getting him, so I'll eventually do a champion spotlight on him once I get him and I test him out a lot. So other than that, though, I think that's all that I got for now, guys. Just wanted to make sure that you knew how to get him, what things to look for, where you can find it in the news, how his kit is going to work, and a lot of questions that we have. You know, again, a question as far as this fear and true fear, you know, things like that. And yeah, I don't know. Just questions. Questions. That's the big question, is if this fear or true is going to also trigger on true fear as well. I'd like to think it should, but I don't know. But anyway, but yeah, that's all that I got for now, guys. Oh, and then the other question is if true fear and fear can be placed on the bosses. I don't think it can. I know they've had that information somewhere, but I don't remember where. But anyway, but that's all that I got for now, guys. I think that's a decent enough look at Harvest Jack and what he's got going on. So again, he'd be interesting in faction wars. Eventually, in the long run in the game, he might become more useful. For now, do I think it's worth like really investing a ton of effort into him if you already have a really solid, you know, account? Nah. But who knows in the long run? I mean, if you think you can get him without too much effort, get him, because you might regret it later, where you'd be like, you know, new content might come out in the game that makes, you know, fear and true fear more useful, or, you know, some of these other debuffs and things like that more useful, and then it's like, man, I really wish I got him, and then you lost out. Because there's supposed to be change of faction wars eventually down the road as well to make it more appealing to players. Now, they've been saying that for quite a while now, so I don't know if and when it's ever going to happen, but if it does, that's all the more reason to want to potentially get him, because like I said, I think in faction wars, he's going to be really useful, really cool, especially on the bosses. So, that's all I got for now, though, guys. I mean, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, statements, feedback, you know, anything like that, leave them in the comments below. But otherwise, that is Harvest Jack, and if you guys are going for him, I wish you luck in getting him. I do hope that he works out great for you. I hope he works great with your compositions. You know, definitely leave comments in the section below, you know, once you do earn him, or if you're having troubles earning him, anything like that. And otherwise, again, I wish you guys luck with him, and that's all that I got on Harvest Jacks. In the meantime, you guys take care, and stay tuned for when I do get him and do a champion spotlight on him. And until then.
Hi guys, this is Anthony here, also known on this channel as AscendantGod. I wanted to thank you for checking out my channel here, really appreciate it. Be sure to check out the other videos, I got plenty of goodies on here. Also check out the description sections in the videos, got plenty of links on there for all different kinds of goodies that I think would be worthwhile for you guys. If there is something in particular that you don't see on my channel that you want to see, be sure to let me know in the comments section as well. And I think that's about it. All I've got, I'm just going to get back to this thing here. I'm pretty sure if I just... Oh,
We have such sights to show you.
wow. That's really funny. Same here.